In the heart of an ancient, sun-dappled forest lay the hidden village of Whisperwood, a secret realm known only to the kindest of creatures. Tall, moss-covered trees stood like watchful guardians, their branches weaving together high above to form a leafy cathedral. The air was rich with birdsong and sweet blossoms, and gentle breezes carried stories whispered from tree to tree. The village itself was nestled in a clearing surrounded by golden ferns and wild honeysuckle. Tiny homes made of woven reeds, bark, and polished pebbles formed tidy rows along winding paths. And within these homes lived animals unlike any others, animals who spoke, learned, taught, and above all else, valued kindness, honesty, and respect. Whisperwood wasn't always this peaceful. Long ago, it had been a wild and disorderly place, ruled by quarrels, selfishness, and noise. That was before the Great Change, when the elders introduced the 5 forest values: listen well, share freely, speak kindly, help willingly, and own your actions. Those who followed these values found something strange and wonderful. Life became easier, lighter, and even magical. Among the new generation of Whisperwood's residents was a young fox named Fern. Her fur was russet red, tipped with white at her ears and tail, and her bright amber eyes missed nothing. Fern was clever, adventurous, and fast, so fast, in fact, that she often got ahead of herself in more ways than one. "Out of my way!" she'd shout, dashing past the tortoises and mice. "I need to be first!" She didn't mean harm, but Fern rarely waited her turn, often spoke while others were talking, and never quite remembered to say please or thank you. One crisp morning, as sunlight pierced through the canopy like golden threads, Fern skidded into the town square where a gathering had already begun. "Am I late?" she huffed. A gentle voice answered, "You're just in time, Fern. But next time, maybe walk instead of scattering all the dandelions." It was Elder Briar, a wise badger with soft gray fur and round spectacles perched on her snout. She was the keeper of the Whisperwood values, and when she spoke, the forest itself seemed to lean in and listen. Fern flattened her ears. "Sorry, Elder Briar," she mumbled, though her eyes flicked toward the crowd already forming near the message stump. Elder Briar smiled knowingly. "Today, we begin the annual Forest Fellowship, a week-long journey where chosen younglings will learn each of the 5 values from those who live them best." The crowd erupted in excited murmurs. Fern's heart pounded. She'd heard of the fellowship, a kind of quest for character, meant only for the worthy. "And this year," Elder Briar continued, "our 5 companions will be Fern the Fox, Ollie the Otter, Tula the Turtle, Wren the Wasp, and Moss the Mole." Fern's tail puffed with pride. Finally, a real adventure. But she had no idea just how deeply this journey would change her, and all of them, forever. Fern barely contained her excitement as she bounded over to join the others. Ollie the Otter, sleek and always grinning, offered a cheerful high five. "We're going to have a blast," he chirped, his whiskers twitching. Beside him stood Tula the Turtle, slow-moving but wise, her shell decorated with hand-painted leaves. Wren the Wasp hovered near the edge of the group, her wings beating in place, eyes wary, and Moss the Mole blinked up from under his floppy hat, dirt smudged on his paws. Elder Briar raised a paw to quiet the murmurs. "Each of you will learn from a guide, one for each value. You'll travel together, and each day you'll face a test. Only by working as a team and learning these lessons will you complete the fellowship." Fern nudged Ollie. Do we get badges or something? Ollie shrugged. Probably something cooler. Tula chuckled, low and soft. Wisdom is its own reward. Wren, arms crossed, muttered, "This better not involve singing or group hugs." Moss tilted his head. "I like group hugs." The crowd parted as 5 guides approached. Bramble the bear, with a voice as warm as summer rain. Sage the squirrel, nimble and thoughtful. Echo the owl, whose eyes saw more than most would ever guess. Pebble the beaver, a master builder known for her fairness. And Glint the hummingbird, quick of wing and sharper in mind. Bramble stepped forward, his deep voice resonating through the clearing. "I will teach you the first value. Listen well. You will travel with me to my cave at the foot of Echo Ridge, where we will begin." Ollie gave a tiny whoop. Fern's tail twitched with anticipation. Listen well? Easy. She could totally ace that. As they set out through the winding forest path, the sunlight dappled the mossy ground. Birds sang from high branches, and vines curled lazily across stones. Fern led the group, of course, leaping from rock to rock, darting ahead. "So where's your cave, Bramble?" she called back. The bear didn't answer immediately. He walked at a steady pace, his great paws barely making a sound. Fern frowned, stopping to wait for the others. "Didn't you hear me?" "I did," said Bramble calmly. "I was waiting to see if you were ready to listen." Fern blinked. "Huh?" "Listening," Bramble said, "is not the same as hearing." They continued in silence after that, each step crunching softly on fallen leaves. The group began to quiet, perhaps realizing this journey would not be as easy as they imagined. By the time they reached Bramble's cave, spacious, fragrant with herbs, its walls lined with painted stones, they were quieter still. "Tomorrow," Bramble said, settling down beside a fire pit, "we begin the lesson." Fern sat down and stared into the unlit fire. The forest seemed to exhale around them, peaceful and slow. She wanted to speak, to fill the silence. But something about Bramble's steady presence made her pause. Maybe this time she would wait and listen. The morning arrived cloaked in mist, and the group awoke to the distant call of a thrush. Fern stretched with a yawn, glancing around the cave. Bramble was already awake, sitting silently at the mouth of the cavern, watching the sun rise through the veil of fog. As the others stirred, Bramble gestured for them to gather around. In front of him was a ring of smooth stones, each painted with a different symbol: an ear, a heart, a mouth, a leaf, and an open eye. "Today's lesson is simple in words," he said, "but difficult in practice. To listen well means more than hearing noise. It means attending, respecting, waiting. It means making space inside yourself for someone else's voice." Wren groaned quietly. "Sounds slow?" "Exactly," Bramble said, not missing a beat. "It requires slowing down, something you're not used to, I think." Wren buzzed indignantly but said nothing. "I want you all to pair up," Bramble said, "and spend the next hour just listening. No advice, no interruptions, no fixing. Just hear what the other has to say." Fern's ears perked. "What do we talk about?" "Anything. What matters is that you don't make it about you." They split off in pairs, Ollie and Tula, Wren and Moss, and Fern sat down awkwardly with Bramble himself. "So, I just talk?" she asked. "If you want," Bramble said, leaning his great head down. "I'll listen." She fidgeted, brushing a paw through the grass. "Okay, well, I guess I could talk about my dad." Bramble nodded but said nothing. Fern took a deep breath. He left the den when I was little. My mom says he had to find himself or something. I don't know. I used to think I didn't care, but sometimes I do. I wish I could ask him why. Bramble listened without blinking. I get mad sometimes and I don't know why. I act first and think later. I guess I don't like feeling small, quiet, forgotten. When she finished, Bramble didn't speak. He placed a paw gently over hers. Thank you, he said softly. Fern's throat tightened. You're not going to tell me what to do. Number, I trust that you already know what matters. When the others regrouped, something had changed. Tula had tears in her eyes. Ollie was unusually quiet. Wren looked suspiciously vulnerable, and Moss kept nodding thoughtfully. That night they sat in a circle around the fire. No one spoke for a long time, and for once Fern didn't mind the silence. She had listened and been heard. The next morning, Bramble packed them a bundle of dried berries and waved them off at the edge of the ridge. Remember, he said as they left, listening isn't just for friends or teachers, it's for everyone. Even the wind has something to say if you're still enough to hear it. Fern looked back once, catching Bramble's warm gaze as the trail disappeared behind the trees. Their next guide was Sage the squirrel, who lived deep within the Birchvale glade, a forest of white-barked trees that shimmered in the sun like silver feathers. Sage was known for her keen wit and quicker paws, an inventor of gliders, berry presses, and hide-and-seek traps. Share freely, she said as they arrived, standing on a low branch above them. That's the value we'll explore here, and no, it's not just about toys or snacks. Fern raised a brow. Isn't it, though? Sage leapt from the tree and landed beside her in a perfect roll. It's about space, about time, about ideas. You're going to learn what it really means to offer what you have, even when it's not easy. She gestured toward a wide clearing where a curious game had already been set up. In the center were 5 baskets. Each had a different collection, one with water, another with tools, another with snacks, and so on. The only rule, said Sage, is that you cannot keep what's in your basket. You'll need to trade, ask, and give in order to make it through the next 3 days. Ollie grinned. Easy. It won't be, Sage replied, already bounding away into the trees. Not if you want to win. The game began, and within minutes, the clearing erupted into negotiation. Moss tried to trade berries for tools. Wren hoarded her water, not trusting anyone. Tula quietly waited, offering her food without condition, while Ollie bounced between everyone, trying to stay friendly. Fern found herself guarding her basket tightly, especially once she realized it held the only flint stone for making fire. No way I'm giving this up, she muttered. But as night fell and the forest cooled, no one had fire, and all eyes turned to Fern. She held the stone in her paws, her chest tightening. Then she heard Bramble's voice in her head. Listening isn't just hearing, it's making space inside yourself. Maybe sharing was like that too. Wordlessly, she passed the flint to Moss. Go ahead. He blinked. Are you sure? I'm cold too, she said, smiling faintly. Let's all be warm together. The fire lit, and as the flames danced in their eyes, Sage reappeared from the trees, nodding slowly. Now, she said, you're starting to understand. By the second evening in Birchvale Glade, the group had transformed. The once silent meals were now full of laughter, stories, and careful attention to who needed what. Even Wren, who had spent the first day clinging tightly to her water basket, was now sharing with a quiet humility. Fern surprised herself most of all. She'd always believed being fast and clever was what made her strong, but here she was discovering that generosity required more courage than speed ever had. On the third morning, as they packed their bags beneath the birch canopy, Sage presented each of them with a tiny carved acorn. "This," she said, "is your token for learning to share not only things but yourselves. Time, patience, laughter. Remember that the smallest act of giving can change everything." Fern closed her paw around the acorn and nodded. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Their next guide awaited them in the shadows of Moonroot Hollow, a dense forest where the trees stood so close together the light barely touched the ground. That's where they met Echo the owl. Echo was silent at first, perched in a crooked elm with feathers that shimmered silver in the dimness. Her eyes glowed like twin moons. "Your lesson," she finally said, "is speak kindly." Moss whispered to Fern, "Shouldn't that be easy after sharing and listening?" Echo turned her head slowly toward them. Speaking kindly doesn't mean only saying nice things. It means knowing when to speak, how to speak, and why. Wren narrowed her eyes. "That sounds complicated." "It is," Echo agreed, "because words can either build a nest or burn a tree." For their task, Echo led them deep into the hollow, where animals who had been hurt by careless words now lived. There was a hedgehog who no longer played games after being called slow, a frog who rarely sang because someone once laughed at her voice, and a squirrel who flinched every time someone raised their voice. "You will speak with them," Echo said, "and try to help them rebuild what was broken." Ollie hesitated. "But how do we do that? We didn't hurt them." "Perhaps not," Echo said softly, "but every creature must learn how to repair, even damage they didn't cause." Fern approached the hedgehog first. She sat beside him for a long time, not saying anything. When she did speak, her voice was soft. "I used to speak without thinking," she admitted. "I'm trying to change that now." The hedgehog looked up at her, eyes wide. "You really mean that?" "I do," she said. "And if you want, I could show you a game that doesn't need anyone to be fast." Slowly, the hedgehog nodded. All around the hollow, the others were doing the same, offering gentle words, not to fix, but to understand. By nightfall, the hollow no longer felt so heavy, and Echo, watching from her perch, let out a soft hoot of approval.